Okay, so hello and welcome everyone. My name is Michal Gallagher. I work for Engineers Ireland as a community engagement executive. I'm delighted to present this webinar on global civil engineers. I'm joined by two other speakers today. Ronan from Morgan McKinley and Cormac Kaplan from O Dwyer. And our speakers are going to be giving insights both as from a talent acquisition point of view, from a company that's actively hiring global engineers, and from a recruiter's perspective, who's kind of looking to source global civil engineers. We have many different perspectives at today's event, so really excited to talk about it all. Before we kick off, I just want to kind of speak on behalf of Engineers Ireland, and for those who aren't aware of it, to talk about why global civil engineers might join the institution. There's a couple of reasons I'm just going to bring you through now. And whether that's specialized continuous professional development offerings that we have, such as Better Business English. This is something that's really in demand with engineers who are coming to Ireland whose first language may not be English. They might want to learn all the technical terms that they didn't learn in English language college. So yeah, that's just an example of our kind of tailored global offering. Professional titles, for a lot of countries, you may be able to mutually recognize any kind of professional title that you're bringing from overseas. But as well, there's the opportunity to gain professional titles while here in Ireland, whether that's associate engineer, chartered engineer, or even engineering technician. So there's many different offerings available there. There's great availability of international recognition. So if you're from a country with who's a signatory of the Washington Accord, and you're studying an accredited course, you'll be recognized on the same ground as Irish graduates. So it's a great way to kind of really establish yourself professionally here in Ireland. Again, just to mention, like when you become a member, it's a great way to kind of track and log all your continuous professional development, whether that's upcoming courses that you want to make sure that you're familiar with the Irish regulatory framework, or whether that's just even for your own professional development, that you want to be the very best engineer that you can be. Engineers Ireland is a great place to do all of that. Loads of different examples of continuous professional development, whether that's dedicated courses and seminars or further education here in Ireland, or even work-based learning or mentoring by those within your own organization. There's loads of community and groups to join in Engineers Ireland based around kind of specific disciplines and interests. And you'll see there's a very active civil division where engineers who all identify as civil engineers kind of come together and they put on dedicated civil engineering events. We have a great STEPS program, which is a way to kind of interact with Irish schools and to encourage the next generation of engineers. So that's another way that you can get involved in Engineers Ireland while you're new here. And just as I come to the end of it, just to say that you can really keep up to date with the developments in engineering that are happening in Ireland through the Engineers Journal, which will be emailed to you every second week. So there's loads of kind of really relevant and timely stuff, and you'll see there's a specific civil section on it. A lot of our stuff is all recorded, and as a member you get access to all these recordings through Engineers TV. That's a dedicated section on our website. And again, like we're going to be talking a bit about careers and job progression and like finding a job and everything. And just to say, on Engineers Ireland we have a jobs desk where we promote different jobs that are available for our members. So you can kind of log in and you can search if there's any jobs that might suit you there. So yeah, I'm coming to the end of my presentation and I'll be handing over to Ronan shortly, but just to say, when it comes to joining, I'm going to have the link in the description of this video for how you can join, but it's very straightforward. You can join on our website, you enter in your personal details, you tell us a bit about your engineering qualification. We are a qualification-based organization, so like where you studied and kind of what level you studied to, and like who your employer is, or you can join as a sole agent, and then of course there's a payment of €280. So yeah, that's everything about how to join Engineers Ireland and a real kind of whistle-stop tour of it. I'm going to stop sharing now and give Ronan an opportunity to begin getting ready his presentation. But yeah, I hope everyone's keeping with us so far. And again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today to our lunch and learn. And I think I can hear you on the audio, or I can see that you're unmuted, so it's all looking
perfect. Okay, hi guys. Thanks again for having me on, Michal. So look, I head up the construction division in Morgan McKinley. We're an international recruitment firm, but we actually were started in Ireland in 1988, and we're the largest supplier of professional staff to companies in Ireland. Now, we have kind of expanded out, and we are in the Middle East and the Asia Pacific region, but we've roughly 700 employees worldwide, and we've about 2,500 contract staff out on site at present. So we're quite a big presence in the market from a recruitment point of view. Basically, that's me trying to say we're a big deal. Now, on the construction team, so we place professional staff only. We don't really deal with trades and labour. It's generally engineers, quantity surveyors, and project managers. The typical engineering roles that we deal with are setting out and site engineers, resident engineers, structural engineers, mechanical and electrical engineers, design, capital projects, and sustainability engineering. And the last one is actually an interesting one because it's a big development area in Ireland at the moment. A lot of the commercial construction in Ireland is driven by sustainable engineering now and meeting LEED and BREEAM standards, and this is always a good thing to have on your CV. From a client point of view, we partner with a lot of the top 40 main contractors in Ireland, as well as smaller local operations. And we also partner with many of the top engineering consulting businesses in Ireland, and a lot of our workflow comes through that route. One of the big things that we have on our website that might help you is our salary guide. It's something that we release annually. It's kind of built on over the years. Now there's 20 years of work gone into it. We kind of collate information from clients, candidates, national bodies, and even some of our competitors and peers in the market. And it gives you a good feel for where you might land in the Irish sector, given the experience that you have. It's available on our website. It's morganmckinley.com. And there's just an easy link to follow through to get there then. Now, engineering market growth, I suppose, for civil engineers or construction engineers in Ireland at the moment, this is a really hot topic. And kind of the background on it is that after the global financial crash in 2009-10, there was not capital expenditure available in Ireland. So there was no investment, which has left this follow-on period now where we're really trying to catch up. It's across housing, infrastructure, utilities, manufacturing, and even other things that I haven't really covered off here. This is not a catch-all. But on the housing side, we're under pressure to deliver probably 40,000 housing units a year in Ireland at present. We're currently tracking to deliver less than 20,000 a year. COVID has affected this, but even in a non-COVID time, we're lagging behind on the supply that we need to give. And this creates a lot of opportunity for engineers with construction companies. On the infrastructure and utility side, so like transport, our transport situation in Ireland is reasonably okay, but it does need investment in roads, rails, ports and airports. To give you an idea of the type of projects that are going on at the moment, there's €2 billion investment happening in Dublin Airport at the moment, which is our main airport in our capital city, including a new terminal building and a new runway. This is going to require up to 1,500 construction staff on site, including, potentially as many as 100 engineers. And that's just one project. On the utility side, our water infrastructure needs development, particularly our power infrastructure needs development, and that's probably driven by the data center construction piece. At the moment, we have 54 data centers in Ireland. There's 10 more under construction, and there's probably another 40 where the planning has been approved. So to give you an idea of the draw on resources, about 17% of our national energy is used to service data centers at the moment, but by the year 2026, it's going to be as high as 30%. And this in turn has the knock-on effect of driving demand for extra renewable energy assets to meet our carbon neutral targets by 2030. So there's an awful lot happening in that sector of the market. And then just on the manufacturing side, I mean, Ireland is a big player in foreign direct investment, and we have a lot of international companies here for manufacturing across pharma, tech, and medical devices. And this drives an awful lot of in-house opportunities for engineers to work as capital project engineers in these companies. And this is a role that we see a lot of here in Ireland. To give you an idea of the scope of the projects, one project there on the Intel site, it's a tech manufacturing site just outside Dublin. It's a €4 billion investment. It's actually the second biggest construction site in Europe at present. And when it's fully operational post-COVID, there'll be up to 6,000 construction staff on site at any given time. So that's kind of a feeling for the type of project we have going on at the moment. Overall, what this means is there's going to be a lot of opportunity for engineers. We don't have the talent locally to fill all these positions, and you know, we are kind of reliant on to deliver all these projects on engineers coming into Ireland. This is just a quick slide, I suppose, on the employment figures in Ireland at the moment to give you an idea where it is. So we would typically class 4% unemployment as being full employment. So that's, you know, if you rule out the people who are unable to work or unwilling to work, 96% is kind of where it's at. Now, it has suffered a setback with COVID, obviously, and sites closing down. But we expect it to be back to around 4%, in other words, full employment by January or February 2022, which means, again, there's going to be a shortage of talent and a scrap for people. And actually, Cormac will probably tell you a bit more about that fight when he comes on in a while. Just a quick bit then about visas. So, I mean, I'm not a visa expert, but I'm going to give you a bit of information here, and it's going to go on the video about the different types of visas that are available when you come into Ireland. Realistically, you want to have a stamp 1G visa or a stamp 4 visa that can be converted into a critical skills visa if you can't get that straight off the bat. Other visas won't allow you really to work and have a career here, so it's vitally important that you can kind of enter the market with the correct visa status. And now I want to cover off a bit about how you can best make your approach into the market and some things that you can do before you get here, just around your LinkedIn and your CV and how to lay them out and how to make them look professional. So on LinkedIn, I think there's nearly 500 million users on LinkedIn at the moment, and up to 200 million of them are active every single day on LinkedIn. So it's quite a powerful tool. It's powerful for recruiters and employers because we can find lots of talent on it. But actually, on the other side, it's also very powerful for candidates who are looking for work, because if you can get your profile done correctly and make it stand out a small bit and look professional, the likelihood is that you may be contacted by people looking for staff. So it's a very important tool to get correct. There's a few things that you have to do. We kind of have 11 or 12 things here that you need to have ticked off on your LinkedIn profile. You know, the photo, the headline, the summary, different extracurricular activities that you put into it. The keyword and search engine optimization is a very powerful tool. And if you have that done correctly, you'll probably land inside my inbox at some stage in your career. If you've mentioned all the right words, you know, I'll come looking for you. I just want to cover off a bit on the photo because this is really crucial. I didn't believe this statistic when I read it, but apparently it's true. If you have no photo on your LinkedIn profile, there's 14 times less likely to get a view on the profile. So it's very important that you have a photo, and it must be work appropriate. This is crucial. This morning I actually was on a guy's LinkedIn profile and he had a group photo up from a festival. So like, I didn't know which person he was in the photo, and secondly, I had to question his judgment to say that that was his LinkedIn photo. But we see many different things: blurry photos with lads coming in from the side, you know, and it's easy. Everyone has a camera phone now. Get your photo right. And the kind of last point that I want to make on your overall content on LinkedIn is not a social media site; it's a professional network. So certainly you should keep non-professional, non-industry related pieces off LinkedIn, and it's not something that you should share. You should keep it professional, because it's easy for me to scroll back through your profile and see what you have or haven't liked, or content that you've put up that may be questionable, and that's what employers are doing. Here's a good example of a LinkedIn profile. In fairness to Ricardo, he has you know, a good photo. He looks professional and serious. He's facing forward. He's got some good information on the profile, and it's very easy to see what he does straight off the bat. He's well groomed, which is important. I know the grooming thing is a bit more difficult now with COVID. It's very hard to get the haircuts. I actually had to give myself a DIY haircut at the weekend. But yeah, look, try and be professionally groomed in your photo. That's what I'd say. The profile piece is, you know, short and sweet, not rambling. There's a couple of examples there for you to look at. I certainly don't need some essay right at the start of your profile to tell me what you're doing. Always good to check out with other people who are in the same career path as you, what they have done, and you'll see other profiles that kind of stand out, and this is a good way to have a look around and also to increase your network. Don't be afraid to click connect with people even if you don't know who they are. Here's a few points on the actual content of your LinkedIn profile. You can make it as detailed as your CV if you want. I always start with your jobs, your most recent job, and then chronologically work backwards. Don't start with your first job at the start of your career. And then, if you don't have much career, if you're a junior candidate and you haven't had much of a career so far, you can add in interesting things you've done in college or projects, stuff that you've studied, things that you're interested in, extracurricular activities, just to bulk out your profile. It'll be quite helpful. This is just a few pieces of information on that. If you've a prize or won a prize or got an award or something like that, it's always easy to put it in. And definitely build a strong network. That's key. And it will support you without you actually being active in it, by dragging your profile up, by being connected with other people. So it's a really powerful tool. Just on the CV side, then I'm going to cover off really briefly a couple of different things. So in each national market, we tend to see that different things are acceptable in the market from a CV point of view. So I'm going to kind of guide you a small bit on what we like to see on CVs in Ireland. The fundamental pieces to CV, okay, content and presentation. The content is your career and it is what it is. The presentation, how you put it, is something a recruiter will help you with, and it's important to get right. On the content, again, work chronologically backwards. There's a couple of straightforward points here, but certainly with the appropriate email, I often see emails like, superstar10@gmail.com, and you might be a superstar, but it's not an appropriate email to have on your CV. It needs to be something more professional, just simply with your name or your name and a number and something like that. Your right to work status, you should include that on your CV as well. It clears it up straight off the bat. Don't lie. Whatever you do, be prepared to stand over everything you say, because if you get questioned about something on your CV and it turns out to be something that you fudged, this is generally fatal in an interview process, and it's a tough way to learn the lesson. On the presentation, look, keep it straightforward. Pictures, graphics, they tend to be a turn off for people. So we like to see profile, education, career, and then your outside interests and references. It's very straightforward in that sequence. Fancy background, passport photos, graphics, they tend to be a turn off for most readers, and it can be hard to follow. Here's a good example now of a colleague of mine, Barry Bone, here in Morgan McKinley, of CV he's put together. So he has a nice, short, personalized profile at the top. Then he has his education straight underneath. Then he has a few skills here or keywords that might be relevant to a job that you want to draw attention to straight away. And then you can work through your experience after that. But I think by the time the potential employer has worked halfway down through the first page of your CV, they have a good idea of who you are and what you've done, and that's very helpful. And then look, the last piece I want to really cover with you today, guys, is the interview preparation piece. There's a big difference between being good at the job and being good at the interview. We see technical guys who would be excellent in jobs fall down at the last hurdle because they just aren't able to maybe speak through their CV properly, or they don't make a good impression in the interview. So this is something that's very important, and something we put a big focus on in Morgan McKinley. Look, it's a classic quote here: by failing to prepare, you prepare to fail. There's a certain Irishman who made that quote very famous a few years ago. But yeah, we like to put in a lot of work to prepare people for interviews before they attend. One of the big things that we kind of all get trained to do here in Morgan McKinley is actually really get to understand the candidate's motivation straight off the bat, because that will help them answer questions then in an interview around what their motivations and career goals are. So just to verbalize those before they go into the interview, it tends to help people in the process. Look, this is the top tip I'm going to give you today. Be prepared for your interview. It's your chance to sell yourself. You need to be confident but not arrogant. And again, highlight the relevant pieces on your CV and show them you want the job as well. This is a piece that sometimes in the stress of the interview process, candidates forget to make clear that they actually do want the job. They might appear a bit stressed out, or they might not express themselves properly as a result. So it's an important one to remember. Okay, yeah, there's some basics here around what to get right. And like we do cover the basics with people to make sure that you get them right. Job description, if you haven't read it line by line and you get surprised by something, this is going to catch you out. If you're not able to actually talk through your experience on your CV, this really does not come across well. The big thing is have examples for potential questions ready to draw on from your experience. So, they might ask you in an interview, tell us about a time you had a problem on a site. And if you can point to something in your CV and talk about it, this can be very powerful, because I suppose employers tend to remember the story rather than somebody who sits back and says, yes, I've done that, and then don't tell the story. And look, I would always say have a couple of questions to ask. It shows that you've maybe checked out the company beforehand and you've an interest in the role and maybe your career development there. And again, it's underlined there at the bottom, be prepared to stand over every statement in your CV. Do not tell them that you've done something that you haven't done, because this will end up quite poorly for you. The STAR technique, it's important to highlight. Everybody needs to know how to answer questions according to this, because it really does show employers your behavioral piece on site, or when you're facing a problem, what you might do, by telling them what you've done in the past. Now, we've all been in the situation where we get asked a question about something we've done and we try and explain it, and it makes sense to us because we were there, but the person who we're explaining it to, they weren't there, and it can be difficult for them to follow it and understand it correctly unless you've kind of practiced talking through these situations prior to your interview. Again, a few more straightforward tips for everybody. Be punctual. This is a basic tip. Don't have people waiting for you. Know where you're going. One or two things from this slide that I'd like to pick out are: be aware of your surroundings from the start. And what I mean is, this is how you interact with maybe security before you go in, how you interact with reception, because often those opinions are canvassed by the interviewer afterwards. We often bring people into Morgan McKinley and we prep interview them. And if I have any concern about somebody's attitude or behavior during that session, I may well ask our receptionist, was the person respectful when they came in? How were they sitting in reception? So the whole behavior is watched. So just remember that when you're going in for an interview. It's a bit different now with the video call piece, but hopefully we'll be back to the face-to-face type stuff pretty soon. And the other thing here is, it's better to be overdressed for an interview than underdressed. So if you turn up in a suit or business formal attire and nobody else is dressed like that, that's okay. But actually, if you turn up in casual attire and everybody else is in suits, that's sure to make you feel a bit stressed out at the start of your interview. So this is an important one to get right. I mean, if you have to be told to switch off your mobile phone before an interview, you have got other problems, to be honest with you. And then your body language and your eye contact, and when it's back to face, a good solid handshake, those things tend to go well in the construction sector, which is a bit more traditional in how they do things. So yeah, that covers what I've got to say. I'll stick around afterwards if there's any questions that you want to ask, but I'm sure Cormac has a lot of information for you now as well.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Ronan. And there's just so much there that I definitely think is really relevant to our global civil engineer audience. And like one of my big takeaways from that was just the sheer amount of infrastructure investment is really incredible. And of course, with where infrastructure investment goes, jobs in civil engineering follows. So that was really great to see. So Cormac, if you want to get your slideshow ready, and while Cormac is putting that up, just to say as well that Nicholas O Dwyer is another kind of Irish homegrown company that has a kind of global footprint. And I'm going to hand it straight over now to Cormac.
Happy days. So you can all see that. All right, yeah.
Sorry, looking perfect.
Yeah, nice one. Brilliant. So I guess on the other side of the coin to Ronan, where Ronan is an agency recruiter that will place you with a consultancy. I'm the consultancy he'll place you with, if that's the route that you want to go. We tend to compete for talent on the market a lot of times, but at the same time we need each other as much as anything else. There will be candidates that I will pass over, and I'll be quite blunt about it, that I'll pass over because they didn't meet, but their CV didn't meet the requirements that I had out for a job. But given 10 minutes of Ronan and a quick clean up to the CV and an understanding of what I'm looking for, when he presents you across, you're suddenly the perfect candidate. So don't be afraid to use an agency. Especially, I would always say your first step should be to approach your top one or two targets directly, to make your interest known to them that you're looking. And if there isn't a bite, then go back to Ronan and he'll get you out to everybody else, and he'll do it in a consistent manner, one where he's not blanketing your CV across the way. He's being targeted. He'll do it step by step and make sure that you're not making too much noise out in the market. So definitely, agencies have their place, as does going direct, and you've got to just pick the right avenue for you. I suppose what I'm going to do with my presentation is I'm going to give you a quick pitch about who Nicholas O Dwyer are. We're your typical consultancy in Ireland. We're probably one of the larger consultancies, larger domestic consultancies, as opposed to an international, multinational consultancy. We're definitely Ireland's oldest, so we've been around since the early 30s, so 89 years. And infrastructure works is where we've made our comfort zone, where we've made a bed. So I can take you through why you should consider Nicholas O Dwyer, but why you should also, when you're looking for a consultancy, what you should look for, because we each offer slightly different aspects to work. So, open for 86 years, Ireland's oldest engineering consultancy, annual turnover in excess of $25 million, 20 million euros, and in fact, that's increased now. We're up to $35 million and approximately about 30 million euros. Last year was a busy year for us. We worked in over 20 countries throughout the developing world. We specialize in sub-Saharan Africa. As a water consultancy, a lot of our projects are humanitarian in nature, and sub-Saharan Africa has the greatest need for water. We have a very strong track record of developing and delivering projects funded by international funding institutes. So, be it the World Bank, EIB, European Aid, Millennium Challenge, there's a whole rake of agencies out there. Work very closely, for example, with the African Development Bank, who are the institutions that fund these massive projects. So we would be very active in the tender market. We work to FIDIC, which is the International Engineering Standards, and all our services are environmentally accredited across the globe. In terms of international projects, I mentioned sort of sub-Saharan Africa. This is a snapshot from the end of last year as to what's going on. So we're currently working in all the red flags here, which is right down the Horn of Africa. So Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and Zambia. We also have Rwanda and Somaliland in here as well. So they're all current projects. A lot of those are wastewater and sanitation projects. So it's not the glamorous side of water, but it's the side where you could have a city the size of Addis Ababa that has portions of the city that have open sewers. They've never had, proper running water and proper sanitation, and we come in and we design and develop the whole sanitation works, right from the sewage network through the pumping stations out into water treatment plants, and it's delivering instant sort of life-changing aspects to the communities that we do this in. I mean, suddenly you're removing an open sewer and replacing with hygienic running water. So I don't think we blow our whistle enough about how how much of an impact that makes, especially on the clean drinking water side. We're the ones that are going out there, putting in the water treatment plants and tapping up the wells, setting out sort of pipelines to feed the different communities, and really changing what could be a small village into towns, if not cities, by bringing a water treatment plant and bringing clean water to the community. The green flags are all wins that have about to be kicking off or be coming up over the next couple of months. So we've got a couple of projects in Uganda, Zambia, again Tanzania, Malawi, and Liberia. Liberia is an interesting one. We're building a hospital and a dedicated wastewater treatment plant in Liberia. Liberia has been in the press for the last 18 months, 2 years, because of the Ebola outbreaks out there. So we're directly impacting the community there with the brand new hospital and treatment plant. We've been doing international projects for the last 60 years. It's always been a part of Nicholas O Dwyer. We decided very early on to go to Africa and to build up an international arm to the business. And it stood to us through the last couple of recessions. It means not all our eggs are in one basket. We're not just solely reliant on the domestic market. If there's a bump in the Irish market, the international business keeps the lights on and the wheels turning, means that there's always business coming into Nicholas O Dwyer. And likewise, if the international side slows down, we've got the domestic frameworks that keep the lights on. We've supplied over 2 million man hours. This is just since the millennium. 2 million man hours of engineering services across our international projects. And as I said, we've worked across 20 different countries in the developing world. We're actively trying to grow our base into Southeast Asia at the moment. So we've got a big project in Vietnam, and we're going to use that as a bit of a springboard into some of the projects, be it in the Philippines or that sort of region. On the domestic side, so we're part of a couple of different frameworks. I'll go through the Irish Water Framework in the next slide, but each of these blue drops on the map represents a water treatment plant or wastewater treatment plant. The red dots are key projects that we have running at the moment. So down in Cork, for example, we've got the Lower Harbour project. In Dublin, we've got a couple. We would have Skloran Reservoir or the Blanchardstown drainage plan. If you're ever out that way, out by the Blanch site, you'll see the big cranes up there. We're thinking a reservoir just on the grounds of Conley Hospital. It's 90 foot wide and it's going down 60 foot. So you can imagine how deep that hole is and how impressive it is. What I do is when I put up the slides, I'll include a picture of it. We've got the biggest commercial tunneling rig in Europe working there at the moment, connecting one reservoir to another. This is the size of the thing that did the Channel Tunnel. Huge piece of machinery and very impressive. So that's one of our key projects. And then up in Donegal, we've got we've designed a new way to do wastewater treatment for small communities, and it's become internationally recognized as, so the pilot scheme to this, designed completely in-house by one of our process engineers. And we have people flying in regularly from all over the world, primarily Scandinavia at the moment, to look at how we've set up this pod system in wastewater treatment. It's incredibly green and sustainable, and very, very low impact. So we've been recognised internationally as being a sort of pioneer in that industry. And so it's great having all these engineers flying in just to see how well we're doing it. And then down in Kerry, we won the 2018 winner of the Engineering Project of the Year by Engineers Ireland. So it's great to be recognised for that. I think we took 60,000 houses off the remedial water supply action list there. So that was that was a great win. And I mean, like you wouldn't think that there'd be 60,000 houses in Kerry that had a boil water notice for so long, but yeah, they that directly impacted the community there. So domestic business, we're on a couple of frameworks, and this is what you should be looking for when you look at a consultancy. You want to see where they're getting the business from. Are they picking it up from the OPW or the Office of Public Works? If they're into infrastructure, who do they work with? Are they a key supplier into Irish Water? Nicholas O Dwyer, we're a water consultancy. If we didn't have any work on with Irish Water, there's something wrong there. So we're the biggest supplier into Irish Water. Irish Water split Ireland up into 8 different regions, and we won 3 of them. So if you draw a line from Dublin to Galway, everything south of it, with the exception of a couple of small counties there in Waterford, Kilkenny, Carlow, and Wexford, all the other sort of geography is ours. Anytime there's a shovel going into the ground on an Irish Water project, one of our engineers has to be there to sign it off, to say that they're happy with it. We're doing a lot of ECI works, which stands for early contractor involvement. So we're working with contractors at the very start of the process to include them in the design aspects, which just makes life easier. But you don't have, traditionally, what happens is the consultancy goes out and designs a super duper wastewater treatment plant or a treatment plant, and then the contractor comes along, decides they don't like the design, and does what they want to do. So this is sort of stops that argument happening when everything needs to be rolling forward, and includes the contractor right from the beginning. So we're pioneering that as in Region 4, which is the Kerry and Cork County Councils. The flip side of this then is the design side. So this is the site supervision. We have to, as I say, provide supervision at all the sites. The other side then, this is a framework for design, and with that the island was split into four regions, and this time we won 2, and we won everything south of Galway, the Dublin-Galway line. So we are designing all the projects, all the different treatment plants, drainage plants, anything basically water related. We're the ones that are designing it ourselves, and Atkins. So again, it just streamlines it. There's one designer, there's one panel of contractors. But how that impacts you as a candidate is, if you're interviewing with a consultancy and maybe your interest is water, and you say, well, what frameworks are you on? Are you on the design framework? And if they're not on the design framework, you know that for the next 5 years, you're not going to be designing anything big from an infrastructure point of view. Or maybe you're interested on the site supervision side. You want to be an RE or an ARE, and you're talking to the contractor and you say, well, look, are you doing any ECI works at the moment? And if they're not doing any of the ECI works, then you know that contractor isn't going to be delivering any of the big infrastructural works. So it's just about, this is where you use your questions at the end of your interview to box smart and make sure that you're making the right decision for your career. So what does Nicholas O Dwyer look for? And I guess it's not so much what does Nicholas O Dwyer look for, but it's what a consultancy would look for. When it comes to Nicholas O Dwyer, the key phrases that keep popping out when we're talking about candidates afterwards, and we're doing the whole breakdown of the interview. Were they ambitious and driven? Do they show that they're curious and constantly seeking to learn, or do they? We want someone who shows a natural curiosity about our projects, about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Team player, capable leaders. Everyone in Nicholas O Dwyer at some stage is going to be tested in leadership and will be given the opportunity to lead a project or lead a team. So they're the type of people that we naturally gravitate to. And then solution orientated, that's the one, so the main key ingredient that we look for, where you're going to have, you don't see the problems, you see the solutions, because in engineering nothing ever goes the way it's meant to. and you will have to redesign your plans 15 times before you even get past the first draft. So I mean, they're what we're looking for. We from an experiential point of view, if there's such a word as experiential, we typically look for project management and design experience. We look for people who have that desire to be a designer, because it's a very specific type of person, and a desire to be a project manager, because with project management comes a whole new level of organizational skills, and you need to be able to demonstrate those in the interview. Occasionally, if we're on the fence, we might ask you to provide a portfolio of your drawings if you're going down the design route, or we might give you sort of a data off a project and ask you to give us an idea of how the project is doing if you went down the project management route. Yeah, so you know, that's what we look for, and how we reward that, or what we give back to you, and what most consultants will give back is they give you a clear career progression. A consultancy is generally quite small and boutique sized, generally, you know, anywhere between 100 to 300 staff, but very set levels. So you start as an assistant project engineer, you move to senior project engineer, to principal engineer, and then you're into the associates, and you start climbing the senior management ladder. And if that appeals to you, then yeah, consultancy is definitely for you, because you will know where you stand as soon as you walk in the door. A consultancy will typically always offer a mentoring program, because we want you to climb the ladder. We want you to grow your career. I know in Nicholas O Dwyer, you've got two mentors from day one. One is a mentor just to get you up and running, you know, a buddy system. But the other one is an official Engineers Ireland mentor, someone who, if you're looking to get chartered or become a member of the institute, they're the ones that will work with you and make sure you hit the targets. And I guess I know Ronan touched on it, and you're obviously very interested in Engineers Ireland. If you hear watching this video or listen to me in the presentation, but I can't say enough how important it is to become a member of Institute, or a member of the Engineers Ireland, to work towards that chartership, to become a fellow. When I'm doing a search, the person I really get asked is, that I generally ask is, you know, are you chartered or are you a member? Because if you're a member of Institute of the Institute of Engineers Ireland, if you're a member of Engineers Ireland, I know that they're happy with your background, your college work, that you're definitely an engineer. And I know that you can laugh and say you're definitely an engineer. There's such a variation in degrees out there that sometimes I might think I'm hiring an engineer, and it turns out I'm not. Whereas with the team in Engineers Ireland, they've done all that piggyback work. I know everything is sorted for you. It's a particular type of person, generally goes out and gets the badge, it becomes a member. They're generally quite career orientated, because they know this will benefit for them, and they like the community. They like the community that it gives being part of Engineers Ireland, which directly leads into the sort of team player aspect that we look for. So yeah, if you're considering it and you haven't done it, I'd say go do it now, because it will be a benefit to you. And then, yeah, I suppose just to round off the whole bit about Nicholas O Dwyer. If you're open to making a move, and you just have a chat about whether consultancy is right for you or not, just give me a call. As Ronan was saying, LinkedIn is the best place. It's where we live as recruiters. But reach out to us and have a chat with us. I do get asked quite a lot for advice, so there will be times where it might take me a couple of days to come back to you, but I'll always come back and say, yeah, look, sorry, I missed your call or missed your mail. let's have a quick 5-minute chat and see if there's a connection that can be made here, or I can recommend you to someone else in the business. But yeah, reach out on LinkedIn and we'll have a chat then. That's me done. Well,
Cormac, I just want to say a massive thank you from Engineers Ireland. That was a really fantastic presentation, and that kind of brings an end to our structured part of the talk today. So I'm going to end the recording.